Welcome back. So really had a great conversation in the last with Sunny Unga and Scott Glenn. So following up on that, we have an interesting series of what we call community insight videos that we arranged in collaboration with Josh Porter of Solar Coaster. These videos are three separate voices that have different and sometimes controversial viewpoints. Doug, in the first video, we have Leilani Chow, project manager for the Molokai Clean Energy HUI. It appears the Molokai community is taking the option for community-based renewable energy very seriously to the point where they're discussing a co-op, electric co-op. That certainly fits in with the values of Malama Aina and Kuleana, understanding that in order to care for the land, you have to take responsibility for it first. So do you have any comment on that?
I would just say that the Molokai is a great example of what a lot of the speakers have been talking about this morning. This is far more a community issue, an acceptance issue, a communication issue than it is a technical issue. You know, Molokai, all we need is 5 megawatts of generation. That's not difficult. But to find a place to put it, to find an ownership structure, to find, you know, how to do this in a way that's acceptable, that's very difficult. And so I think Molokai is a great example, and I think it should be interesting to see. You know, we're also going to present some thoughts this morning from Henry Curtis. And Henry is a very long time contributor to environmental and energy issues in Hawaii. And one of the reasons we wanted to put him on video is that so many of us are just reading his work now. You know, he puts out a blog regularly. And especially on the neighbor islands, I think that people really rely on his coverage of the PUC. So it's just nice for people to be able to actually see him and you know, not just have his words. So that's, yeah.
So our final video speaker will be Bob King of Pacific Biodiesel. Bob's been a longtime advocate who owns one of the most successful energy companies in Hawaii. He has been a leader in biofuels, particularly biodiesel, for many years, Doug.
Why? Yes, absolutely. And I think that this falls in the category we mentioned of some controversial thoughts. I think that if you're a solar person and you listen to Bob's thoughts, you'll find it very interesting. He is presenting a perspective that, you know, solar energy through crops is really the right answer rather than solar energy through silicon, you know, semiconductors. So anyway, like we said, we wanted to present a series of different views, and I think that we're going to give them to you.
Yeah. If we're going to go forward too on the issue of biofuels with agriculture in Hawaii, here is a company that's able to produce liquid fuel from crops without leaving the state. And I think he's also saying that the best way to move forward in renewable energy is not only to electrify everything, right? So, yeah. So let's move forward with our videos, and we hope everyone will take heed and enjoy. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome to the Solar Coaster live show here for Hawaii Energy Conference 2021. We've got a great show today with Leilani Chow from Molokai, and I'm so excited to talk with you, Leilani. How are you today?
Doing really well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And Molokai is such a special place, and I've been there. We've done shows, by the way, for the Solar Coaster radio show. We've visited Molokai and evaluated, and we're introduced to the entire grid. So I have a basic sense of how the electric infrastructure works out there, which is pretty cool. So I want to get a better sense of kind of who you are and the organizations that you represent. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Leilani Chow, and I'm from Kawela, Molokai, which is right in the middle. And I do a couple different things for energy conservation on Molokai. So I help, I'm the project coordinator for the the Hui Appliance Exchange with Sustainable Molokai. And so that helps provide community access to energy efficient essential appliances like refrigerators, freezers, washers, and dryers. And then I also work with Pono Home, which is an organization that helps people green their houses or do retrofitting for LED light bulbs and high efficiency water fixtures. And then I also am the Hui coordinator for a fairly new group called the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, which is a sustainable Molokai initiative, but for the most part, it's community-led, and our main goal is to help advance our clean energy future on Molokai.
How many people live in Molokai right now? Just as a starting point, roughly.
There's about 7,500.
Yeah, 7,500 people.
Yeah, and 3,000-ish households on Molokai. If you were to ask a lot of like developers or HECO, it's so small that it's technically like a microgrid just by size alone.
Right. And I understand the grid size itself is about 5 or 6 megs. So that is pretty small.
You think that from the size and what we need as far as energy, it would be pretty easy to take us to 100% fairly quickly. But, just based on where we are and how isolated we are and the type of community that we live in, it's been quite a challenge. Actually, there haven't been any bigger renewable energy projects in the past 10 years. And so, Molokai, we definitely want to see that change. We'd like to see our clean energy future advance for sure and be able to achieve those 100% renewable energy goals. But if you're familiar with Molokai, we have a pretty fierce reputation for being steadfast, aloha aina. And so there are things that we're not willing to compromise on. And we're currently working on a way to, meet in the middle and have like a mutually beneficial project. And we probably, based on our size, we would only need like a couple like medium to large scale projects, and hopefully that'll have us covered and take care of our sustainability needs and our energy resiliency needs as well.
Absolutely. And what I understand is that there have been some really cutting edge projects in Molokai, but maybe it was earlier. For example, I know there were, and I visited about a dozen homes that had a virtual power plant kind of experiment going on, and the utility had the capacity to dispatch these homes. Some of the utility executives brought me over there, and that was fascinating. So I wonder, and I know that there was also supposed to be a large scale solar system that was maybe around 2 megawatts in that territory. Does that not have traction right now, or is that stalled in some way? Do you know?
No, I believe that fell through, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think it had to do with like interconnection costs.
Kidding. Okay.
They're pretty high on Molokai, and we haven't done any real like interconnection studies to help figure out how to reduce those or get through those challenges with that.
Molokai has, people may not know this outside of Hawaii, but our rates vary per island, right? Our electricity rates, and our rates in Molokai I've seen are among the highest in Hawaii. So that's obviously pretty critical. And when you look at the long-term value proposition of solar system, be it community-based renewable or a large-scale solar plus battery system from an IPP or a home-based solar system, the long-term value is so substantial that it can just change lives. It can really make a big difference. All right. Well, very good. Well, let me ask you this. Do you have any expectations for the near future of what you see happening, and what do you think is going to happen in the next year or so? Are we going to get some solar systems in there? Are you looking for partnerships, or what is it you'd like to accomplish?
I'm very positive that we're gonna figure out exactly what would be the best fit for Molokai, and the Molokai Clean Energy Hui is actually working on a Molokai Community Energy Resilience Plan, which would kind of help us to do to get technical assistance and do like a feasibility study on the existing resources that we have as far as our grid, and kind of make a roadmap ahead for us and take a look at the solutions that we are most interested in and that would best fit, and really break it down to like how much would it cost and how much would that help us and how much would that cover our island and what's the best way to stabilize our grid on all the ends and not just the center, and
Right.
how to make our energy needs be more resilient, and all of that. And I'm pretty excited for that because I think that once all of the technical aspects are taken care of, and the community is like brought into that conversation and has a better understanding of like what our potential solutions could be, then finding a developer after that would be, a lot easier and a lot more secure for the developer.
Nice. So you're in planning phase, basically right now, and kind of working to kind of get buy-in in a sense from the entire community about which direction you want to go. That is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, it's an exciting time for Hawaii, right, Leilani? Because we've got all these RFPs out there. Companies have been awarded. In Maui, I think we have maybe 4 large-scale solar systems in Maui Island itself, and they're being worked through the system right now to get deployed. So I'm so excited to see Molokai find its path in that same area, and then to see Molokai maybe become the first 100% renewable energy environment in Hawaii. That's so exciting. Well,
Yeah.
any final words to our audience and to the listeners here, Leilani, before we part?
Not really. I mean, I'm just super thankful for this opportunity to talk about the Hui and all the work that we're doing, and just represent the community. We are very active in wanting to define our energy future, and I'm excited to see all the projects that come from all the different islands, because we're all helping each other figure out what's the best way to get it done. So we have a Molokai Clean Energy Facebook page, which is how we're doing a lot of our community engagement and discussion, and kind of just sparking that interest to pull in all the people who want to be involved in this conversation. And then we have our meeting recordings posted on our Molokai Clean Energy Hui YouTube channel.
There it is. Check it out, folks. Molokai Clean Energy YouTube channel. Leilani, Chow, it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much, and aloha.
Ahuyo.
Aloha, and welcome to the Solar Coaster Live Show here with Doug McLeod, Chair, Hawaii Energy Conference. And we're discussing this notion with Henry Curtis of what is it we're not anticipating in our path to 100% renewables. How are you today, Doug?
I'm good. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, Henry and I were talking nowadays, if you're going to put 2 old white guys up on a stage, or in this case, up on a screen, they really better have something to say. And, we were thinking, what do we really need to talk about? And for me, the issue that I don't think we're talking enough about in the energy scene in Hawaii is what I call the bad actor factor. And that's the likelihood that someone really intends some mischief to the grid, actually intends some harm. We do have a tendency in Hawaii of talking about resilience, but it's really been focused on hurricanes, and partly because of the Iniki experience that we had. But I am just personally concerned that a number of the projects and technologies that we're talking about probably ought to be written off or changed just because of this risk. And a couple that really come to mind, all of the projects involving undersea cables. We don't really have a live project currently talking about power going between islands, but we do still have a number of people talking about offshore wind, particularly offshore floating wind. And if you just look around the world, it's common knowledge that most navies with submarines have equipment that can cut cables, and this type of thing, we really aren't saying, hey, that's just too risky in terms of someone intending a bad action. We evaluate the risk from nature, tsunamis and the like, but we really aren't out there saying, hey, could someone really just take us out that quickly? So first one that comes to mind, definitely offshore wind. But I would also say this isn't a utility scale versus distributed thing. People that follow the nuclear energy industry, they're familiar with a facility in Iran called Natanz, and it's been the victim of several rounds of hacking in different ways, usually attributed to the Israelis. But In the last go round, what was sort of startling is that one of the fixes the Iranians had put in after the last go round was battery backup on site, as a way to kind of have controlled power. And in the latest hack, people were actually able to go in and take control of these batteries placed there for storage as well. So when I think that, and I see what's going on, I like, okay, here in our energy conference, we're excited to have Swell's CEO speak, and virtual power plants are an exciting technology. But, every time we say that the control for these distributed resources is going to be in a centralized location, again, we're creating that risk that someone gets in there and essentially takes control, or at least causes chaos. So that really does concern me. And again, it's not a distributed versus utility scale, because the model that Hawaiian Electric's been using in all these big procurements is dispatchable power, and that's their term. And it really, again, means that someone sitting in a room at a plant can control the output of batteries miles away. So I just keep asking myself, are we evaluating this risk of the bad actor factor? And I'm not convinced that we're giving it the weight that we should. So, when Henry and I were talking, that's the one that really stuck out to me.
At the Public Utilities Commission, there's a great deal of emphasis on policy issues and on projects, but far less on the grid. And the Colonial Pipeline situation, I think, highlights the issue that a lot of infrastructure is vulnerable. Certainly, the Ukrainian grid was brought down. Israel and the United States screwed around with the Iran centrifuges. There have been a number of proofs that you can attack infrastructure. And Hawaii's grid is vulnerable, just like everybody else's grid, to a cyber attack. And Hawaii more so than most, because we have a great deal of variety on the grid. We have all kinds of different legacies. That is stuff that's very old, stuff that's new, stuff that's borrowed, and any vulnerability can occur anywhere. I attended a military cybersecurity and energy conference held during RIMPAC. It was held at the Hickam Officers Club in 2016, and the military was pointing out that a system is vulnerable from the weakest component on the grid. And as we put in more and more smart devices, as we put in more and more different kinds of systems onto our grid, the attack can come from anywhere, and we have to be prepared for that. Hawaiian Electric has hired hackers to try to attack their system, and the military in Hawaii has hired hackers to try to attack their system from the outside, and then to allow them access inside to see if they can do damage once they've penetrated the outer wall. So there is efforts underway, but these are highly secret or classified. But as we seek to reimagine what the grid will look like from both a cybersecurity and from a climate change threat, as we seek to deal with the coastal areas that can deal with flooding and deal with rain bombs and hurricanes, we need to begin thinking about how we design the grid that is environmentally, culturally, community-wise, and cybersecurity-wise a smart way to the future.
It's a remarkable concept, the notion that one could control not simply information flows or data flows, but actual IoT, Internet of Things, devices. And when you're talking about a garage door, okay, there's a certain level of threat. When you're talking about a lithium iron phosphate battery in your home, there's a certain level of threat, maybe less chance of thermal runaway. When you're talking about a cobalt battery with active cooling system, then you've got, I think I know what we're discussing here. We're talking about the potential for thermal runaway or for potential for, explosion or fire or real overt catastrophic consequences to someone hacking that dispatchable power, as you described it. And that's Doug McLeod, Chair, Hawaii Energy Conference, with the bad actor factor, and Henry Curtis, Life of the Land. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for everything. Aloha.
Aloha, and welcome to the Solar Coaster live show here for Hawaii Energy Conference 2021. We've got a great show today with Bob King from Pacific Biodiesel. How are you today, sir?
Doing great.
Now, Bob, I'm so excited to talk with you. I just told you a funny story about me going out to the sunflower field and trying to get a picture of or a video of them heliotroping throughout the day. I discovered after the fact that they don't exactly heliotrope as flowers. So
that's right.
We were out there for hours on end from 0400 going, well, I think I see them moving. I think I see them following the sun. No dice, Josh. So thank you, by the way, for doing great work and having an amazing company. And we have had Kelly on in the past, and it's been so wonderful to learn about biodiesel from you all. So tell me a little bit about your company. Let's just introduce yourself to start out with, huh?
Yes, thank you. Great to be here. Bob King, president of Pacific Biodiesel. And we've been 25 years in business now, making biodiesel in Hawaii, and built a dozen plants in other places around the world. And but now, in the last 5 years, we focused strictly on Hawaii and trying to get things to the next level and make our home a better place.
That is what it's all about. And we're going to get to that in this conversation, understand what your plans are. I understand you have a proposal out there right now called the Agriculture for Food and Energy to Grow Hawaii's Diversified Economy. And I hope we can touch on that in a moment. I really want to understand and help the listeners understand what your perspective is with biodiesel. How does biodiesel fit into the new energy economy, the renewable energy revolution? We know about solar. We understand batteries and storage are coming down the pipeline, and they're more and more being deployed. There's all kinds of great tech out there. What about biodiesel? How does it fit in?
Yeah, thanks. Biodiesel really, I think of it as the gold standard of renewable energy because it's so diverse, so versatile, diverse, and you can store it easily in regular tanks. Use it when you want to. Run both mobile and power generation equipment with it. That said, we don't want to waste biodiesel like we've been wasting fossil fuel. And so the challenge is really where is that place for biodiesel in the future, and how should we be? A lot of people say, well, let's get rid of diesels, let's get rid of all carbon, all internal combustion, and just go with electric. But we got to follow the science here. If we're gonna do this right, let's follow the science. And the science is that CARB just came out with a good study in the last month, California Air Resource Board, saying that biodiesel is 3 times better life cycle greenhouse gas emissions compared to electric. And like, wow, how could that be? But there's a lot of resources that go into making batteries and electric vehicles and the electricity that charges electric vehicles. So in Hawaii, the number is probably closer to 5. It might be more, 5 times better life cycle greenhouse gas emissions running biodiesel in a truck or car. So, let's not bypass the best and to go with what seems on the surface to be clean, which is electricity. We do need it all. We're going to need everything. The bad guys is fossil fuel. Let's get rid of the fossil fuel, but let's make sure that we keep all the options that we can. Right now, Pacific Biodiesel is making a lot of biodiesel in Hawaii, over 5.5 million gallons a year. And last year, we sold a lot of it to the utility. We made 80,000 megawatt hours of electricity with biodiesel last year in Hawaii. Or the utilities made it. We supplied the fuel. So that's a lot of electricity, and it's on peak or base load. I mean, this is a really nice fuel. That said, that's about all we can make with what we have in Hawaii. So we've got to get to the next level, which is growing more feedstock. And I will say that, you know, while photovoltaic panels are a mechanical converter of solar energy to electricity, we use the biological path, which is those sunflowers that you were looking at the other last year. Spectacular converters of solar energy to oil, to liquid fuel, and we just clean it up a little bit, basically. So these biological based path to solar power is really good. We don't do a lot of it, or hardly any of it, in Hawaii. So that's the challenges. How do we stand up this new agriculture base and make sure that it's supporting food production as well as energy?
This is exciting, Bob. This is exciting because from the perspective of someone that kind of lives in the discussion of new emerging tech in the renewable energy world, I often ask myself, how does this compare to other options? And you just, articulated a pretty clear opinion on that. That's been backed up by a recent study you said by CARB. I can't wait to read that. So in terms of GHGs, overall life cycle GHGs, we think there's a term called cradle to grave full analysis, right? And of these solutions that are emerging. And so on that one area right there seems to be clearly a strong value proposition. Anything that's a multiple is a strong value proposition. Now, in addition to that, there's a clear value proposition or a clear role in providing firm power, clean firm power, and that's an area that's limited by our in our current capabilities. So, and then that firm power, and then that really strong GHG value proposition kind of gets me to the question of, well, we're looking at 100% RPS in Hawaii, and the challenging area probably is on the tail end, the last 20%, right? And
Exactly.
So I wonder if you see biodiesel as playing a key role in that, and then also I do want to jump to this proposal of yours and better understand how Hawaii's economy could be diversified through agriculture in relationship to biodiesel production.
Well, you're certainly right. The last little bit's a hard one, because it's a difficult value proposition to have huge batteries that it's going to make it through that cloudy, windless week and still keep the lights on. So you need those batteries. You're going to need once a year or twice a year. It doesn't make any sense to invest the phenomenal amount of money into that. Biodiesel is a perfect fit. So biodiesel will last for several years without degrading. So you can store it up and use it whenever you want, when you need it. The goal is to use it as little as possible, because while it's there, it's also expensive, and you got to grow it. And so as what we don't want to do is say the island of Maui that uses 50 million gallons of diesel fuel a year for electricity. Trying to just wholesale replace that with biodiesel that's not a good proposition. But that last 10 or 20%, that's the spot. That's the sweet spot where we can make it. And remember, all the dollars that we spend on biodiesel, if we get our agriculture going and we get the feedstock grown here, that's basically it's labor. Farming is about labor. So the land is there. You help the plants to grow, and so every week, every month, every year, those are jobs, growing crops, both for food and for energy. And I say food and energy because they just fit hand in hand. The really correct direction on this is to get farming happening, get farmers an income that they could survive. And then we're going to have farmers, and of course they're going to grow food for us, and they're going to grow energy as one of the products.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to cap it off, Bob. This has been Bob King, President, Pacific Biodiesel. Visionary, I'm going to call you, because you've been at it for a while, and it could turn out that this is a key piece of the renewable energy transition for the state of Hawaii that's leading the country and the world. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your vision. Really great to have you on board the Solar Coaster here at Hawaii Energy Conference.
All right. Thanks for the time. Aloha.